The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
And the gang is all here this weekend. Matt will be by phone. He's feeling a little bit under the weather, but he is going to be part of the show. Producer John is a part of the show via remote after having taken care of his homework last weekend. We appreciate that. Got a big weekend. We got the results, actually, of the 2025 Race of Champions. Just ran over the last couple of days. As a matter of fact, just wrapped up a few hours ago. We've got legal action to talk about, not only in NASCAR, but potentially in Formula One. Good Lord, what's going on in the world? Got the NHRA continuing to fill out their 2025 plans, hoping to come back in a big way. Penalties were a big story in the Cup Series this weekend. Matt and I dealt with it a little bit on Cross Flags. We'll deal with it a little bit more here. Got Formula One and the FAA making a final big decision on Cadillac, and unfortunately, we will tell you about the passing of a person from the Indycar world. We got that and so much more coming up on this edition of CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Steve West in studio. The only guy in studio. Matt by phone, feeling a little bit under the weather there. You were running a little bit of a temperature yesterday. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, and halfway have a voice. It's kind of the same mess you're dealing with, but it's hitting me over the weekend.
Yeah. Last weekend, I had to deal with that. I was getting worse and worse throughout the course of the show. Found out later on, middle of the week, had a combination of things going on. I actually wasn't sick. I had an inner ear infection, and I was dealing with allergies and a reaction from the wildfires that were in the area. And all of that combined to kill my voice. It was weird. But it's back. Not necessarily 100%. I'd say about 85, give or take, percent. So hoping that everything...
mine's about 15.
Yeah, I understand. Hoping that you are going to get better soon, my friend. But stick with us as long as you can here, and let's talk about what happened last weekend. Last Saturday, starting their racing weekend, got rolling on the turns of Circuit of the Americas, the Xfinity Series, and it seemed like there were a lot of efforts to try and kneecap Connor Zilisch, but the guy just wasn't going to be deterred from his mission to get victory lane. He got penalized for a commitment line violation. He had to start at the rear of the field when he pitted as pit road was closed. And he still claimed the lead from Carson Kvapil on lap 56 of 65, and he was gone. Even hard contact with Corey Heim wasn't going to put him off. The two fought for position late. Zilisch got into Heim and knocked him off course, and despite the damage that he caused to his own car, tire rub on the right front fender under hard braking, he still got the win. Zilisch, your winner. Moonlighter William Byron claims second. Sam Mayer, Austin Hill, Christian Eckes, Jesse Love, Taylor Gray, Moonlighter Ross Chastain up in there, along with William Sawalich and Blaine Perkins. You can tell that doing that late race bumping and banging there, Corey Heim got the worst of it. He fell outside the top 10.
Yeah, he got the wrong end of the deal on that one for sure, no doubt.
But I'll give him a lot of credit. He didn't come out of the car and just start railing on Zilisch. He said, hey, listen, this is kind of the name of the game when it comes to road course racing. I get it. He took it professionally.
Yeah, he kept it cool in a very good way for sure.
Yep. All right, so here's the deal. Austin Hill, Jesse Love, and Connor Zilisch all have wins. They are locked into the playoffs provisionally, at least, assuming that, we don't get more than the 12 that need to be in there. Sheldon Creed is leading those in on points. Creed is trailed by his teammate Sam Mayer, then Justin Allgaier, Sammy Smith, Jeb Burton, Taylor Gray, Christian Eckes, Harrison Burton, and Carson Kvapil. William Sawalich and Ryan Sieg are tied for 12th on points, but Ryan Sieg fails the tiebreaker, just to let you know. Sunday actually started in Florida. Indycar got their season rolling in St. Petersburg. Scott McLaughlin claimed the title, but it was then two-time defending series champion Alex Palou who got on a mission, and he succeeded in his mission. He just bided his time, but on lap 75 of 100, he was able to go ahead and take the lead, held off a late race challenge from six-time champion Scott Dixon, and he starts off his two-time defense with a win. Not a bad way to start. Palou bests Dixon, who said after the race that he went the final 90 laps without his radio. Apparently it was only one way because his team kind of said, hey, listen, every time we called him in to pit, he pitted. So maybe it was a situation where Scott Dixon could hear it, but he couldn't necessarily transmit.
Yeah, that probably was a switch or something in the push to talk that wouldn't let him go back out.
All right. Joseph Newgarden third, Kyle Kirkwood fourth, and Marcus Ericsson fifth. The rest of your top 10, Felix Rosenquist, Christian Lundgaard, Rinus VeeKay, Alexander Rossi. Since the points largely resemble the top 10, we're just going to leave that until after race number 2, and we'll start updating you on the other things like Rookie of the Year and, Honda versus Chevrolet and the engines and all that kind of stuff. We'll deal with all that next race. That sends us back over to COTA in the Cup Series, the second race in a row, Christopher Bell in victory lane. He's got a chance to go for 3, something we haven't done 3 in a row for one driver since 2001, I think it was, when Kyle Larson pulled the trick. Christopher Bell got around Kyle Busch with 5 laps to go, brought William Byron along with him, held off Byron's last tries to get that win as well. Top 10, Bell, Byron, Tyler Reddick third, Chase Elliott fourth, Kyle Busch faded to 5th. Shane Van Gisbergen up to 6th. Chris Buescher, Noah Gragson, Alex Bowman, and Todd Gilliland round out the top 10. just for the record, Connor Zilich, yes, he did start the race. He finished credited with last, but he was involved in a crash. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but this time not necessarily of Connor Zilich's doing.
Yeah, it was not of his doing. Daniel Suarez spun off of 19 when he clipped the inner curbing and got into the gravel a little bit on an access road, and it launched him. It spun him out, and he there was a lot of smoke going into the sunlight where it go entry into turn 20, and he lost him in the smoke, and he was trying to avoid him, and he just missed. He had nowhere to go.
Yeah. So that ended that bid for him to be the youngest ever winner in the Cup Series. We'll update you later on the next step in that process. Meanwhile, Christopher Bell's your 1 seed with 2 wins in the playoffs. William Byron has 1 win. Then in on points is Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, Michael McDowell, Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. This is after the race on Sunday, by the way. Austin Cindric, Chris Buescher, Joey Logano, John Hunter Nemechek, Carson Hocevar, and Kyle Larson. Denny Hamlin just on the outside looking in. And then we got Thursday here in the United States, technically Friday in Australia. Race of Champions got underway down under with the Nations Cup. First day of action. That came down to a battle between Team France and Team Australia Supercars. Don't forget they had another Team Australia off-road. But the Supercars guys came in. Will Brown represented Australia in the final. Victor Martins drove for France in a winner-take-all showdown down at Accor Stadium. The two were side-by-side around the course, headed into the final corner, but Brown couldn't hold it off of that final corner, and Martins gets the edge that he needs. So he claims the win, and in the process locks down Team France's first Nations Cup title since 2004. And then, really, just a few hours ago, came the end of day number 2, and the drivers taking on each other regardless of country affiliation. As it happened, it again came down to a battle between France and Australia. And against type, the French didn't surrender. They actually won a battle. They took home the title when Sebastian Loeb was able to beat Chaz Mostert to the line by a full car length, claims the overall title, and has the French be the overall victors of the entirety of the Race of Champions. Well, I say. It was bad showing for the United States overall in looking at what they did. They didn't win a heat race in the Nations Cup. They got swept out 2-0 by the Australian Supercars teams. And then neither U.S. driver was even able to make it out of group sessions in the quarterfinals. No disrespect to Travis Pastrana or Kurt Busch, but I'm getting the funny feeling we may need to find some more specialized people for this. Because something's missing there.
I think Kurt Busch would have needed a different partner because Pastrana's not really specialized in any certain area. He's just all over the place.
Yeah.
Kurt Busch can handle that type of stuff.
Well, and I said it before and I'll say it again, but obviously the scheduling this year didn't allow for it. If the schedule allows for it, I'm sorry, I'm putting Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell in those cars.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so what's happening this weekend? Well, here we go. This weekend's racing starts later today as we air live. It's the GovX 200 at Phoenix Raceway for the Xfinity Series. Going to get rolling on the CW and MRN Radio, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time. NHRA getting their 2025 season underway with the Amalie Motor Oil Gator Nationals down in Gainesville. Things going to get rolling at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time. Fair warning, won't show up on Fox Sports 1 until it airs at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time after they air the Cup Series race. Cup Series taken to Phoenix tomorrow for the Shriners Children's 500 on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Again, that's race coverage. That is not pre-race coverage because radio and TV tend to do it very differently. Starting to really get into the season now because we've got series that are off that we cover. Craftsman Truck Series, Indycar have this weekend off. Formula E's off until April, for crying out loud. All right, so that's your schedule for this week and this weekend, and going to be fairly interesting to see how all of this shakes out because we're going to talk about penalties here in a minute, and there was one big one levied, and Then we had that appeal by Chase Briscoe's team. But first, I'm kind of getting tired of talking about this, but it continues to rear its ugly head, and this is that back and forth on the lawsuit between NASCAR on one side and 2311 and Front Row Motorsports on the other. And the latest in this now is that NASCAR is countersued. Okay. This is, again, the latest volley in a more than 2-year battle between the two sides over what became the new for 2025 charter deal. And that really long back and forth negotiation process that it took between NASCAR and the teams before it finally got broken down into, here, read this, sign it, or not, and we're done. All right, so this countersuit, 30-page filing. NASCAR's claiming that 2311 Racing's co-owner, Michael Jordan's business manager, Curtis Polk, set out specifically to violate antitrust laws by conducting an anti-competitive practice related to the deal, the charter. In addition, Polk is being pointed to as something of a ringleader when it comes to the opposition of this new deal, which was signed, again, by 13 of the 15 teams in that last-minute take it or leave it only 48 hours before the first Cup Series playoff race of 2024 situation. In fact, if I remember seeing it correctly, and I don't have the wording in front of me, but NASCAR in the countersuit actually said that Curtis was something of the leader of a cartel. That's kind of a poor choice of words.
That's a pathetic choice of words. Yeah, that is an absolutely pathetic choice of words, one.
Yeah.
Two, there's a lot of things that I've seen in quotes from this thing right here that I've seen to where there's a lot of things that are falling on deaf ears, if you ask me.
Sure.
I don't understand why because I forgot exactly who I seen that said it, but if they felt like that, they felt like they had to do this because what 2311 and Front Row had so much merit, they had to do something to try to stir the pot up.
I guess.
I forgot who said that.
Well, let's see if we can't give you some meat to this really weird little looking bone. NASCAR's attorney Christopher Yates, talking to the Associated Press, said this, quote, Curtis Polk basically orchestrated and threatened a boycott of one of the qualifying races for a major event, and others did not go along. He got other teams to boycott a meeting required by the charter. When you have a threatened boycott of qualifying races that are covered by media, that's not a good thing for other race teams, not a good thing when you are trying to collectively grow the sport. I don't think Mr. Polk really understands the sport. I think he came into it, and his view is that it should be much more like the NBA or other league sports, but it's not. No motorsport is like that. He's done a lot of things that might work in the NBA or might be okay in the NBA, but they're just not appropriate in NASCAR. In addition to the countersuit, NASCAR says they're seeking an injunction that would then eliminate the guaranteed starting spots for Front Row in 2311, something the current judge in the case already ruled on over the holidays in favor of the teams. He's asking they revoke the 4 charters that the team held in 2024 and to dissolve the purchases that the court approved from each team, one each, from the former Stewart-Haas Racing organization, and make them have to qualify on time. Again, I don't think that part of it will hold any water because the judge has already ruled on it. And I'm not necessarily certain that this particular countersuit brings anything much new to the table that would cause the judge to look at it and go, yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and revoke those.
Yeah, I don't see any of that he's already done being revoked whatsoever.
Yeah.
2, this when you get threatened boy, if memory serves me correct, I don't think there are any other qualifying races that are in place but the duels.
Right.
And memory serves me correct, I've never heard of any threatened boycott of the duels.
I never heard of one either. And here's the thing. If that had happened, to have any
dual boycott, one.
But
2,
to have any teeth in this, think about it.
Understands the sport. It would be his view and be much more like the NBA or other league sports, but it's not. motorsports is not like that. He's done a lot of things that might work in the NBA or might be okay in the NBA, but not appropriate for NASCAR. Okay, let's back up here, and I'm getting on the roll here. There's probably a lot of this medication I've been taking trying to get myself cleared up. But what did the NBA start in 2024 that basically NASCAR is now starting the same identical thing in 2025, a mid-season tournament?
Yeah. I know. And the other thing that kind of gets me on this whole situation is that, this has to go back. If we're talking about heat races, the only things that I can think of, you talked about the dual races, and to have any effect on the negotiations, it would have had to have been for the 2024 Daytona 500. Well, we never heard anything about that. So I get the funny feeling that that's not there. There were heat races for the All-Star race, but I don't remember hearing anybody complaining about that, so I'm going to discount that too. So I don't know what it is that NASCAR is coming up with here. They are going to have to bring more to the table than what they've got, at least from what we are hearing and seeing.
And there is a very large wing of the media right now that's seen this, and a cited quote in the countersuit, a cited quote came from the website Essentially Sports. Essentially Sports is AI generated articles.
Yeah.
You're trying to cite an AI generated article? You have no water. Your case has no water.
This is grasping at straws.
You're grasping at straws. And I can hear Joe Pesci saying it and My Cousin Vinny to whatever her name is, his fiance.
Yes.
Does the defense's case hold water?
No,
it does not hold water.
Yeah, and we're going to get probably pretty much the very same explanation. Mona Lisa Vito.
Yeah, Mona Lisa Vito.
Yeah, we're going to get pretty much the same explanation that just disarmed the whole thing and won the whole case. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. I like that. All right, so from there, we'll talk about some penalties here, because after COTA, NASCAR levied a penalty. You and I kind of hashed it out a little bit on crossed flags. Plus, they heard the Chase Briscoe appeal. We'll talk about that coming up here in a minute as well. Maybe give a little bit more insight into that and get into the other news here from the Cup Series, IndyCar, Formula One, and so much more. We're just getting rolling on this week's edition of CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Real quick note here before we continue on. Matt is by phone because he's feeling a little bit under the weather. I, Steve West, am in studio. Producer John on CRN Live on YouTube, covering it all very, very well. One of our good and loyal friends on CRN Live on YouTube, Chi-Town Mark, in the hospital. So we wish nothing but the best for him. Our thoughts and our prayers going out to him. All right.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Good news, bad news kind of a week when it comes to a couple of teams and NASCAR penalties. And everybody likes to deal with the bad news first, so we're going to do that. And if you happen to check out crossed flags, you already know some of this, but we're going to try and add a little bit more to it, okay? Team Penske's Austin Cindric got docked 50 points, fined $50,000 for intentionally spinning out Ty Dillon at COTA last weekend. Now, if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube, you can see where Cindric hooked Dillon early in the race. Dillon bumped Cindric early, and Cindric retaliated, hooked the right rear of his number 10, spinning him out. Here's the thing. Dillon didn't hit anything. He was able to get back rolling, and no yellow was shown to the field. And this is the reasoning that NASCAR gave for not suspending him, in addition to saying, well, it happened on a road course and it happened at slower speeds, so, you know, no damage, no harm, no foul. We'll just dock you the points, dock you the money, and that'll be it. You and I, Matt, and I'm going to let you go ahead and take this wherever you'd like to take it from here. They suspended 2 other drivers specifically of note, Bubba Wallace and Chase Elliott, for similar actions. Granted, it was on ovals. I get that. They stripped Austin Dillon of a championship-eligible win last year because of doing this. And yes, I get it. Again, it was at Martinsville, I think. Richmond, thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong. The speeds at Richmond coming off of 4 aren't that vastly different from what they were doing on that straightaway at COTA last weekend.
Nope, they were not. 1.
So speed's not really the factor, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not a factor. It's the principle of it. It's the principle of it doing a right hook and turning somebody deliberately. It's the principle of, I'm wondering if they had their attorney, Christopher Yates, issue this statement right here, because everything he said dealing with that lawsuit, with countersuit of 2311, had no validity. And this right here has no validity, if you ask me, because now you've officially opened the largest form of Pandora's box that's known to mankind when it comes to this, because now Martinsville has officially just became Payback City.
Sure, and that's coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Martinsville is a slower speed track, so somebody somewhere is going to test this.
Absolutely.
Is going to test it.
Well, and so here's the thing. And you and I have talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again. Drivers have long memories. You know, we gave a lot of credit during the race recap to Corey Heim for keeping his cool and being very professional about how Connor Zilic roughed him up to claim the win at COTA. That's not to say that Corey Heim hasn't got that in the back of his head and going, hey, if I get the opportunity, I'm certainly going to be able to say payback time and nudge you out of the way so that I can go claim a win. And Ty Dillon's probably got it somewhere in the back of his mind. Yeah, I think I owe Austin Cindric a much bigger one than what I gave him.
Yeah, definitely. So it's now that they know at a slower speed track, and that all I'll be out is just some points. Let's be out some points and be out $50,000, and I won't have to sit. Game on.
Yeah. So it's going to be
somebody's going to test it.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody will sooner or later, and I'm expecting it probably will be sooner. So with that penalty, Cindric falls out of playoff contention. If you remember during the recap, and I told you he was sitting in 11th. Yeah, he ain't sitting in 11th anymore. He was 11th. He's down now to 35th in the standings. Ouch. No word on whether Team Penske might appeal, and truth be told, I'm not so certain that they got much grounds. I'll be real honest.
They're not appealing.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me. As for appeals, the one for Joe Gibbs Racing driver Chase Briscoe got heard, and the three-person panel actually overturned it. A little bit of a shock, actually. So what this did was, it restored the 100 points to Briscoe, restored the 100 points to Joe Gibbs as the owner of the 19, nullified the 4-race suspension for crew chief James Small, and they don't have to pay the $100,000 fine. Joe Gibbs Racing said that they compiled a whole lot of evidence in relation to this, because what they got hit for, in case you've forgotten, was an illegally modified spoiler after winning the Daytona 500 pole, and they got fourth in the Great American Race. Well, whatever evidence they brought, and we don't know, we're not privy to it, the three-person panel apparently agreed with the evidence as being compelling, and they noted in their ruling, quote, the panel believes that the elongation of some of the holes on the number 19 car spoiler base is caused by the process of attaching that specific spoiler base to the rear deck and not any modification of that single source part. So again, you get the 100-point penalty rescinded. That actually does restore him back into the playoffs, and with Cindric out, he now sits 14th, tied with Carson Hocevar. Again, he gets his crew chief back as well. They don't have to pay the fine and all that. You and I kind of talked about this, and we kind of tried to hash out what could be some potential solutions here. And if you wanted to go way off the reservation, I threw out the idea, if you're going to go single source parts with a deck lid, could you do an integrated spoiler into that and have a one single source made part delivered to the teams that fit whatever rule package you needed? And you said that would probably be a lot more difficult, and you came up with, I do think, probably a lot better idea, but you still have the same situation of ending up having to take one spoiler off and put another on.
Yeah, you would have to doing a singular deck lid with the spoiler length of whatever track and package that you're running at. That would be very, very hard to accomplish. But, you know, you could just really cut down on having 19 bolts that hold a spoiler in.
Yeah.
Yes, 19 bolts hold the spoiler in with a pattern of a CAD file I saw. The way you could eliminate it is have, I call them the pre-lock nuts that are in the spoiler. With the pre-lock nuts, have the holes already pre-drilled with the pre-lock nuts in there. Have them set so that way you're not re-drilling and pre-drilling holes.
Yeah.
And have the holes in the spoiler pre-drilled so that way there's not a lot of drilling of the holes to where you have to re-drill holes and realign them up. Have those set right there. But the easy way to do it is you could have the spoiler attached with 10 bolts, half of what you could do if somebody that had a functioning brain could pattern it right, and it can be patterned right.
Sure.
Sit there and pattern it out to where you have 2 bolts on the outside flange of the spoiler, and then pattern the interior 6 out to where it locks it down and secures it safely. That way you're not having air escape underneath the spoiler and creating less drag on the car.
Yep.
It gets all the air over the top of it.
Because we know, you and I know this very, very well. You know, everything's about timing and time when it comes to getting these cars set up for whatever track that they're going to. These guys aren't taking their sweet time slowly by hand backing out or tightening up these 19 bolts. They're using power tools.
Yes, they're using it. Yeah, absolutely they're using it, because every time you put them power tools to it and you pull those spoiler bolts down, you're going to take a fraction of that hole out of there regardless.
Absolutely.
Whether it be a sliver or you knock a chunk out of it.
Yeah.
Because I've even done it before on a piece of sheet metal.
Sure.
That was on my late model.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it before and I'm like, oh, great. I just messed up. But it can be done. And when I saw the breakdown of it on how the CAD files look and how everything and what they called them out for, I knew that I guess this is my cousin Vinny Day on the show. because I knew this case didn't hold water.
Yeah.
Because it was not the spoiler that they said was. They said the spoiler was modified. It was not the spoiler. It was the deck lid.
Yeah.
That had the modification to it.
Yeah.
So what was it? The deck lid or the spoiler?
There you go. All right. Having a little bit of fun with it after the fact here. Brad Keselowski had his cool suit fail during last Sunday's race. Now, have you ever used a cool suit in your driving exploits?
No.
Okay. Explain as best you can, though, what a cool suit is and does for the driver.
Well, what basically the cool suit is, it's a cool shirt. Mainly it's a shirt to wear. You keep your upper half of your body cool, to where it's got tubes that run through a Nomex undershirt, and you hook a hose to it, and there's a pump that sits in the car that will pump cool water through that shirt and keep your body temperature cool. Because these newer cars can get so stinking hot on the inside of them.
Sure.
And they've got them sealed up everywhere they go. They don't leave the right side windows open to slower speed tracks anymore, or the road courses.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool suit to where the water flows through tubes on your upper body and your upper core, to where you don't overheat and you don't cook, basically.
So when you hear that this failed, does this tell you that the flow wasn't happening or that the water wasn't staying cool?
More than likely, when it failed, that's going to be the pump failed in the car, and then the pump went out, and when that pump goes out, you're
stuck.
You're basically Sierra Oscar Lima.
Yeah, I got you. Keselowski, to his credit, did finish 15th at COTA, and when he got out of his number 6 Ford Mustang, he got placed on a stretcher, taken to the infield care center. NASCAR officials confirmed he was treated and released on site after given fluids via IV. RFK Racing later confirmed that in their post on Twix. Again, for those of you that are fairly new to the show, it's my combination of Twitter and X. Quote, after his cool suit failed during today's race, Brad Keselowski went to the infield care center to get some IV fluids. Can confirm he's feeling much better now. He decided to have a little fun with it. I don't know whether you've seen this picture or not, Matt, but he posted a picture of himself at the RFK Racing compound in a modified fire suit that I don't think NASCAR is going to let him race in. Has no sleeves and it's shorts.
Yeah, I saw it. It looks like something he would walk down the boulevard at Talladega in.
Oh, I want him to. I think that right there would be fantastic and would go over big at the big one on the boulevard. He did post, quote, thought I'd try a new way to stay cool this weekend. I like the fact that he's keeping a good sense of humor about it, and that's what it takes, because, you know, we've just gotten into what is a very long season. When we dealt with the schedule here, you and I said it. The Cup Series has exactly one weekend off, and that's Easter weekend, which means that it happens early in the year. These guys are girding themselves up for a long campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to see that he kept his sense of humor there. Speaking of this weekend at Phoenix, as the Cup Series heads there, the option tire returns for 2025, and this means that with the option tire at Phoenix, this is the biggest track that the option tire will have ever run on. Teams are going to get 8 sets of tires total. 2 sets are going to be the option tire, and you can tell which one is which by seeing the red lettering on the sidewall, the other 6 being the regular compound with the normal yellow sidewall lettering. Some of the rules here, this is not all of them, but this is some of them. Teams will not be allowed to use the option tire during qualifying. You cannot mix and match the tires. In other words, all 4 tires must either be primary or the option. A NASCAR spokesperson said that should the option tire perform well, here's the part that gets me, and I'm not so certain that this is a great idea, but we'll see. Should the option tire perform well at Phoenix, then it would become the only available tire for the championship race. And here's the other side of it, for the record. Wet weather tires are also in play for this weekend if needed. It's Phoenix. I'm not so certain that they will be, but you never know. It could rain out there.
It rained really hard yesterday and hampered ARCA practice and qualifying.
So they're actually taking this mile plus track out in Phoenix, and they're treating it like North Wilkesboro, Martinsville, and Richmond. They're treating it like a short track.
To which it should be.
I don't disagree with that. Do you agree with taking, and I don't know what the parameters are of if the tire performs well. I don't know what those parameters mean on NASCAR's part. Do you agree that that should be the only tire option if it does perform well?
No, it should not be, because if that's the only tire option, you're going to sit there and you're going to double the pit stops through the race, because the tires are going to go away twice as fast.
Sure.
With a softer compound.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense to make it be the only one.
We're going to find out.
Doing yet again.
Yeah, and we're going to find out real quick. We're going to find out real quick how quick that falls off, because here's the thing. North Wilkesboro got newly paved, and we saw it lasted basically forever. Richmond is, and you and I have been there. Granted, it was now almost 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago.
Yep.
But that surface was holding up pretty well.
Right.
So it lasted probably longer than it's going to last out in Phoenix. Phoenix doesn't get a whole lot of rain and all that, but you want to talk about some really beaten down sun, and it's been a lot longer since Phoenix got paved. I don't know. I'm going to be real curious to see exactly how long these tires are going to last out there.
Yeah, it seems to me they're grasping at straws, trying to do something to generate a little bit more action on the track for being a championship race.
Yeah.
When they come back.
Well, I can already tell you this. If we get a caution, which seems likely, with about 10 or so laps to go in the race tomorrow, anybody who's got a brain is going to be coming down going for an option set.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it.
And if I'm the crew chief, I'm holding a set aside for you as my driver, just on that chance that we are going to get a caution flag with I'll even go less than 20.
Right.
So we'll see.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break here. When we come back, women in racing, it's a spotty history. Certainly in the NASCAR set. It doesn't matter which series you're talking about, but the Cup Series, most definitely, we haven't seen a whole lot of them over the course of time. But we're going to get another one coming into the situation tomorrow. We haven't had a female start a race in NASCAR's Cup Series since 2018. Who is it? What's she driving? What's her expectations? We'll talk about it.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Cup Series, as noted, hasn't had a female start a race since Danica Patrick started the 2018 Daytona 500 and didn't do well. Catherine Legg, 44 years old now. She's going to drive for Live Fast Motorsports in Sunday's race in their number 78 Chevrolet. She's never raced in the Cup Series. She does have 5 Xfinity Series starts to her credit. The native of Britain, Legg, said of the chance, quote, entering the NASCAR Cup Series is a dream come true. Racing stock cars has been incredibly fun and a new challenge that's given me a renewed sense of vigor for this sport. As always, I'm grateful for the opportunity to do what I love, and I'm inspired by all the effort, preparation, and behind-the-scenes work that it takes to get here. Again, despite having no Cup Series experience, NASCAR apparently felt that her start in the ARCA Menard Series at the Daytona 500 or Daytona season opener, where she finished 39th, was enough to give her the start. I mean, that's all I can figure. Unless
I don't even know what to think or what to even say with how they determine who's eligible to start a race or not anymore. I have no words.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, I'm feeling like a formal apology is due to one Mike Wallace.
Yeah, it's beyond past that. Because you're giving someone, and let me say this up front. I am not knocking Catherine Legg's ability to drive a motorsports vehicle.
Okay.
No matter what discipline you drive it in,
mm-hmm.
I'm not knocking her ability to drive it. But there is now officially no clear benchmark or threshold on what you're able to do to be eligible to start in driving a cup car. There's officially none.
I agree.
Because you, again, I'm giving 2 examples here. Helio Castroneves, the only thing he has driven is open wheel cars on high speed tracks.
Yeah, unless you count the SRX series.
Outside of SRX being mainly short tracks.
Yeah, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But I'm saying unless you count that, then yeah, you're right.
Yeah. His last form of a super speedway start was in 2006. Okay. So what was the clear basis on giving him the open automatic exemption just to be able to start the 500 because of that? He held his ground the best he could, but he was an absolute godforsaken pinball at Daytona in the ARCA race and the Cup race. He was a pinball.
Mm-hmm. And
okay.
And here's the thing, and I'm not using this. I'm not trying to slam Catherine Legg on this. She's in the number 78 Live Fast Motorsports car. She's going to be a rolling roadblock.
And then some.
You know, and
then some.
I think she, to a certain, because they had a Women in Motorsports kind of symposium at Phoenix yesterday, and Lynn St. James was there, Catherine was there, a couple of ladies from Motorsports Media were there as well. And she admitted that her goal was just to run all the laps. She wants to try and finish on the lead lap. That is her primary goal. She understands the realism of being in this car, that this is not, it's not even a mid-pack car. This is a back marker car. She understands that.
She gets it. She does get it. But somebody that has got 5 Xfinity starts that are on road courses, that ran Indianapolis last year, had 7 IndyCar starts. You start the ARCA race at Daytona, but you get taken out in an accident that was not of your doing.
Right.
You ran a handful of laps. Oh, you're clear to run a cup car. Huh?
Yeah. It's going to be one of those little subplots that we're going to follow here on this show when we watch this race tomorrow. I can tell you that right now.
So here's exactly the path that I'm going to do. It's what I'm going to do now. Okay? And the reason that I know that this can work because I saw it work and know that it worked at Bristol the last dirt race.
Okay.
With me having dirt late model experience and running on dirt.
Yeah.
So Cup decides they want to go back and run a dirt race. Guess what? I'm going to call BJ McLeod. Hey, BJ, I've got, let's just say hypothetically, BJ, I've got $1 million sponsor right here to bring. I want to drive a 78 car at, let's say they bring it to Eldora. I want to go drive a 78 car at Eldora.
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Absolutely.
I'll get your license, get everything took care of.
Yeah.
Because Jonathan Davenport did it for Colin Inspire at Bristol in trucks. So you can't tell me that it can't be done.
Doors open all over the place.
He has no asphalt starts under his belt, but they let him ride in a Cup car.
There you go. Something to watch out for. We'll see.
They have no merit anymore.
Yeah, I agree. We're all over the place when it comes to the rulings here. From one who is about to make her Cup Series debut to the driver expected to be in the Cup Series sooner rather than later, talking about Connor Zilisch. Zilisch raced at COTA last weekend, expressed a desire to become the youngest Cup winner in history. He doesn't turn 19 until June. Now, obviously, again, he finished last because he got involved into a wreck not of his doing. And so, therefore, his goal is still sitting out there, right? But at this time, Zilisch says that there aren't any more plans for him to have a Cup start this year. He got caught up again in an accident. He finished 37th. He realized the economics of it. And this is pretty smart for a kid who's not yet 19. Quote, obviously it takes a lot of money, and it's the fourth car that Trackhouse does not run very often. So it's tough on the team, and they obviously have 3 cars that they want to go out and show up at the track with and compete with every week and put a full focus towards. So as much as I want to run another road course, I don't feel like I have a ton to really learn on road courses. Obviously, I learned a lot against some of the best in racing against those guys, but I'd learn a lot more on an oval. You agree with his assessment?
Yes, and if Red Bull wants him on the racetrack, Red Bull will put a check in Justin Marks' hand and say, put him out here. And he will put that car back on the racetrack.
And here's the thing. We can have up to 40 cars start a race. He finished last weekend in 37th. So there's opportunities out there for him to get into these races. There's no doubt.
He will get in that race, get in a race if he wants to get into it. Period.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to see him. And again, I don't care whether it's on a road course or whether it's on an oval. I think, it would certainly be highly beneficial for him to be on an oval. And I'd like to see it because, he's got to learn it somehow. If this kid is the hot shoe that they keep talking about who's on the predestined course towards being in the Cup Series sooner rather than later, he's going to have to get on an oval and start to prove himself there.
Yep.
Let's see. This rumor, and I don't know really whether I hold a lot to this. This seems a lot more somebody came up with something political here more than anything else, but I'm going to throw it out there just to let you know. Rumors started flying this week about a possible cancellation of the Mexico City doubleheader because of the political situation going on between the United States and Mexico. In case you don't know, don't follow politics a whole lot, I'll give you a quick overview of it. President Donald Trump levied a tariff against goods coming in from Mexico early this week, and then he backed off of them later in the week after he said he talked to Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, who previously said that she was willing to counter with tariffs of her own against imported U.S. goods. So apparently the two of them sat down to negotiate about it and came to an agreement to at least delay this whole thing. And I've said this ahead of time, that this whole tariff situation that Donald Trump is throwing out there is not him going and threatening Mexico or China or Canada or pick whatever country you want to talk about. This is a negotiation tactic. This is him trying to get the leaders of those countries on the phone to see if they can't get a fairer deal. But that's politics, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it. If, let's just say, that we decide that we're going to kill this NASCAR race, NASCAR says they do have a contingency plan in place for that weekend, June 13th through the 15th. This is, again, a planned Xfinity and Cup Series weekend. So instead of running at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, if they can't do it, apparently they would turn their attention to run on the road course at Daytona, like they did in the COVID year of 2021. NASCAR insists right now Mexico is still the plan, though.
I know where all this huggabaloo come from.
Okay, bring it.
And with everything that's done, what it's done with all this stuff with the Mexico, U.S. tariff deal, whatever. Anyway, somebody created this rumor, and I saw it on a social media platform with photos on it, and it was debunked because on the future iRacing schedule for that respective weekend that comes up, they have the Daytona road course on that weekend for iRacing when Cup and Xfinity is in Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
They have iRacing running there because Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is not on iRacing.
There you go.
So somebody is starting a rumor up, but it has no merit whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Politics aside, unless you get into a situation like Russia invading Ukraine, you're not going to cancel a race like this that quick,
No.
with this short an amount of notice. This was a deal that was signed between NASCAR and the promotions group for Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. That deal got approved by the Mexico City government and the government of Mexico because Mexico City is the capital. So they all agreed to it. They all approved it. And they all know that this is going to bring in money. How much money? Not really sure 100%, but we're about to get into Formula One news here after the top of the hour break. And I've got an example of how much money a race weekend can bring in to a market, because the final numbers for the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix are in, and they're kind of eye-popping, truth be told. So the ability to bring not only the Xfinity Series, but the Cup Series, plus hometown favorite Daniel Suarez along with it, that's all a huge draw for a track that, it does get used, but the only really other 2 weekends that they've got where they've got a high-profile event, they just held it with the Mexico City E-Prix, which runs on a much shortened version of that track. And then, of course, Formula One later in the year. This is a dead period for that course. They want to use it because they spent a lot of money, number one, to build it, and number two, to keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
there you go. I find it really, really hard to believe. Short of, and I seriously doubt this is going to happen, and I'm not starting a rumor, but short of the United States and Mexico going to war, I don't see this weekend getting canceled.
No. It ain't happening.
Yeah, so let's put that rumor to bed right now and turn our attention over to the aforementioned Formula One, which we're going to do here after we take this mid-show break here. We are halfway through. F1, Indycar, news from the NHRA and the IHRA coming up. Plus, we got Xfinity and Craftsman Truck Series news all to come in hour number 2. We're just only halfway through the show. Lot yet to get to. Hang on.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hour number 2 underway here. Steve West in studio. Matt Nicholson feeling a little bit under the weather, but he is joining us by phone just to make sure that I don't get infected. And thank you very much. I appreciate that, Matt. Producer John producing remotely. We appreciate him doing that too. Let's turn our attention over to the fine folks at Formula One, where they haven't even gotten their racing in yet in 2025, but Ferrari's already got a win in court. The Scuderia went to the court of Modena in Italy and got a court order that blocked their former aerodynamicist, Enrico Cardile, from entering into any communications with his new team, Aston Martin, until his gardening leave period comes to an end. Now, this is European terms for what we would call sitting out a no competition clause in your contract. Aston Martin announced the signing of Cardile just last July. And ever since, the two sides have been kind of negotiating about possibly kind of trying to shorten that gardening leave time, as they call it. But during preseason testing, apparently things became so apparent that no agreement was going to happen. So just to make sure, Ferrari went to the court, got the order that he can have no communications with Aston Martin until that time comes to an end, and that will be July 18th. So what do you do until July 18th? Sit around and twiddle your thumbs? I mean, I don't know.
Yep. Twiddle them.
Have fun, man. Formula One and the FIA gave final thumbs up, and it is now official. You thought it was official before. Now it's really official. Cadillac is going to be part of the F1 grid in 2026. This official thumbs up taking place just yesterday as we air live. They got conditional approval last fall. Again, note that I said conditional approval last fall. But even based upon the conditional approval, that got the wheels rolling and really sped up the process that Michael Andretti had started, getting an engine deal to tide them over until their in-house units are ready, getting their shops in order, solidifying their relationship with Ferrari. They're going to get power units and some suspension parts from them. FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem said, quote, the FIA Formula One Championship's expansion to an 11th team in 2026 is a milestone. GM Cadillac brings fresh energy. Cadillac F1 team's presence in the paddock is going to inspire future competitors and fans. Their entry strengthens our mission to push the motorsport's boundaries at the highest level. It's funny, he's saying all the things that we kept hearing against having an Andretti Global / Cadillac entry coming in until Michael Andretti stepped aside. This just baffles me. Good grief.
It is baffling.
It really is. But here we go. In the wake of the official approval, Cadillac has stated that Graham Loudon, as a veteran team executive in Formula One, is going to be their initial team principal. This is a guy who, for example, helped Manor Racing actually get up and running before they even started a Formula One race. Then he moved over to Virgin Racing. He's been good friends with Richard Branson, the owner of the Virgin brand, for a long time, but then it changed owners and names to Marussia in 2012 and actually merged with Manor before they folded after the 2015 season. They have over 200 employees already on the payroll. This includes a couple of pretty well-known names within F1 circles, former Renault technical specialists Nick Chester and Pat Simons. But if they want to get on the par of the likes of the big guys, the Ferraris, the Red Bulls, the Mercedes, the McLarens, that 200 number for employees, probably going to have to be multiplied, 4 or 5 times. Cadillac officials insist that they want to be competitive quickly, said that they're going to work towards that ultimate goal. Again, Ferrari powertrains, Ferrari suspension for the most part. They're going to build their bodies in-house with the help of Dallara. Sounds familiar. Haas F1. I don't know. I'm not really sure 100% what to expect. I mean, your team principal, yes, has experience as a team principal, but he has experience at a backmarker or a couple of backmarker organizations.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've seen and have had the opportunity to be somewhat impressed. And I'll use the Haas F1 example because they're the most recent ones coming in 2016. They came in and they scored championship points in their very first race. I'm not going to say that Cadillac is incapable of doing it, but I think a lot of it has to do with exactly how quickly they can put everything together, and that includes a driver lineup.
Yeah, with now knowing that they've got that grid approval, they better be working on driver lineup like immediately.
Well, and that's exactly what they said they're doing. We've noted they would like to begin with an American-born driver, Colton Herta being the leader in that clubhouse, but there's nothing confirmed yet. Also, reports of several drivers having actually contacted Cadillac to gauge their interest potentially in them. But Loudon said the drivers would be chosen on merit. In other words, based upon what they've done on track. Now, Americans have a spotty history in Formula One. You can go back to the good times when you had drivers like Mario Andretti who won a championship. But if you think recently, you think the Alexander Rossies of the world or the Logan Sargents of the world, yeah, that didn't work out quite anywhere near as well. So what does Loudon think about it? He said this, quote, "For sure, we're going to hire drivers based upon merit, but as such, we see no reason why we don't have American drivers in time. There's nothing preventing a driver from being selected on merit and being American. I think that would be something that a lot of fans would really want to see as well. At the end of the day, though, Cadillac Formula One team is based in the U.S. We have an operation in the U.K., but it's headquartered in the U.S. It's a U.S. team as well, so I'm fairly sure that hiring on merit and having a U.S. driver are entirely compatible objectives for the team. This tells me that a Colton Herta or a current IndyCar driver is certainly more than in the running for getting at least one of those seats."
Yeah, I honestly think it's hurt us to lose.
Yeah. And then the question becomes, who are you going to pair him with?
Personally, I would pair him with somebody like Sergio Perez or snatch Valtteri Bottas away from Mercedes.
Yeah, because
personally,
I don't know what Valtteri Bottas's interest is in it, but one would presume that, being a reserve driver right now, he'd love to get back into full time.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
Put yourself in Graham Loudon's shoes for a moment. You're the team principal of Cadillac. Knowing now that you're approved to actually get on the grid for 2026, you're starting to set a timeline here. And you know that, you got timelines that you want to have a car ready to go in and be full size and ready to go into wind tunnel testing, blah, blah, blah. What's your drop dead date for having a driver lineup?
If it was me, I would have my driver lineup by June 1.
June 1, okay. I was saying June 30th. I was going to go right smack dab middle of the year. You and I are right about in the same area, though. Okay. Makes sense. All right. I teased this going into the top of the hour when it came to the final numbers for the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix. They're in. And understand, this was a popular race. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people showed up for the Heineken Grand Prix of Las Vegas, or Las Vegas Grand Prix, however you want to put it. And a lot of people tuned in to watch it, too. About 56 million plus people tuned in worldwide to watch it as it happened live. According to the financial returns, this is how much money a race can bring in, depending on the size and scope of everything. $934 million in local revenue came in. That puts about $45 million into the tax coffers of the state of Nevada alone.
Right.
And according to the deal made with the state to host the Formula One race, about a third of that, about $15 million, are going to go to schools around the state. $934 million coming in for that one race weekend. And
that's a lot.
And you wonder why Miami wants to host, COTA wants to host. It's why IndyCar is going around and they're getting at tracks like Barber Motorsports Park, Long Beach Grand Prix, City of Nashville. It's why NASCAR loves to come to places like Talladega and these places. And it's why generally these localities love it, because it brings big-time tax revenue in. Because here's the thing. The vast majority of these people, they're not just going to the race and then going home. They're staying there. They're spending money in the area. They're going out to eat, or they're going out to the local stores and they're buying their goods and, their ice and their hot dogs and their charcoal or propane or whatever it is that they're doing. They're buying all that stuff in that area, and they're putting money into the local economy. That's why we like racing so much. But wow, $934 million. Whew. That's hefty, even for Vegas. In addition to signing, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Moët Chandon as the official champagne of Formula One. The brand that is going to be used in all the post-race trophy presentation ceremonies, they've got sub-brands under there. And one of those, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do it because I'm a kid who grew up watching Looney Tunes. Belvedere vodka, and I know that it's not pronounced this way, but every time I think of the word Belvedere, I think of that Bugs Bunny commercial. Oh, Belvedere, come here, boy. It's a vodka. Who knew Belvedere did a vodka?
Yeah.
Okay. It's now the official series vodka partner. Exactly what's that going to entail? Well, it appears that they're going to be the title sponsor of the official after party of the Australian Grand Prix. In addition, the brand will be the primary name served in all hospitality spaces all season long, in the paddock club, in the garage area, race participants not included. No word on the length of the deal. One presume it matches the length of the one signed with the parent company for the champagne, too.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. I like the bottle, by the way, that showed up there, the Vegas edition. You can see it now on CRN Live on YouTube. Really, really cool look. That's why I chose that particular picture. The regular one is just a white label with black lettering on it. It was a little more boring, so I went with that one. Okay. So we talked about Ferrari doing legal action, and then we talked about NASCAR doing the legal threats as well, with NASCAR countersuing. Well, how about yet another legal action? Sure, why not? Oh, good grief. As the gavel slams down, apparently has become the new sub-name of this show. Motorsports United Kingdom head is apparently threatening to take legal action against the FIA for their admission denial at the most recent World Motorsport Council meeting, which is purportedly just the latest thing to happen. Okay, let's see if we can't unravel this here for you. The Motorsport UK chairman, his name is David Richards. Richards, ironically, was a major backer of one Mohammed bin Sulayem to become the new FIA president when he was elected a few years ago. But now he feels that things have gone, if not straight downhill, at least sideways. He claims that the omission of the United Kingdom and Richards himself was payback because Richards refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and that's just the latest example of his, quote, concerns about the erosion of accountability and good governance within the FIA. Richards addressed his support in a press release saying this, quote, first of all, let me turn the clock back to a little over 3 years ago when we, alongside the Royal Automobile Club, supported Mohammed bin Sulayem in his bid to become the next president of the FIA. Many of you were possibly surprised that we didn't support the British candidate, Graham Stoker. But the board met with both candidate teams. They were convinced by the well-thought-out plans that Mohammed's campaign team presented, which is very much aligned with our very own views and the way that the FIA should be transforming itself. The key messages in their presentation were a hands-off president. Can we stop there for a moment? A hands-off president? I'm sorry, does that sound like what Mohammed bin Sulayem has been since he took that office, 3 years ago?
Absolutely not.
Okay. A hands-off president who would be non-executive and delegate the day-to-day running of the FIA to a professional executive team. The appointment of an empowered and capable CEO to run the FIA to professional standards. I don't know of one. Full transparency of action and highest standards of sporting governance. But the final straw, Richards said, was his request to be signing a non-disclosure agreement. Yet another one. Said, quote, the final straw 3 weeks ago was being asked to sign a new confidentiality agreement that I regarded as a gagging order. At the time of my appointment to the World Motorsport Council in 2021, I signed a confidentiality agreement, easy for me to say, and in fact was already bound by Article 4 of the FIA Code of Ethics. I remain committed to my confidentiality obligations under this new existing agreement and Article 4, which remain in effect. However, this new confidentiality agreement went further than this And at a week's notice, I was told that if I did not sign it, I was going to be barred from the next World Motorsport Council meeting, and he was. Well, all of this is based upon the fact that Ben Sulayem's tenure happens to be up this year. And that means we're going to have a vote later this year. This begins to tell me that we're probably in line to at least have a really good push for a new president.
Mm-hmm.
So now becomes speculation time, right? One of those potential names happens to be the person who's currently the head of the FIA Academy, the FIA Academy managing director. Her name happens to be Susie Wolff, who happens to be the wife of Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff.
Nope.
Well, here's the thing. She's throwing cold water on that. She recently released a statement about this, said, quote, well, she really talked about her role as the FIA Academy head, or F1 Academy head. First of all, she said this, quote, I always like to think of this as my year one, really. I will say that with a lot of enthusiasm, but also knowing that I've got to prove that this concept was right. This is the all-female division, by the way, about equal to Formula 4 on the ladder. She said, I'm hugely proud of what we've achieved to this point. It's still just the beginning. I think there's a lot more we can do, but I can already see the positive impact that we're having, and this is something that's reassuring to know that we're both on the right path. Obviously, having F1 teams on board and supporting their drivers is also a big foundation of hopefully our mid to long-term success. It was clear to me that two things had to happen, racing with F1 and having F1 teams on board that we can all manage to achieve. Now we need to prove we have a platform that not only delivers return on investment, can be impactful. In her statement, she made no mention of the FIA president's role or even a potential candidacy for herself, but it is to note that those close to her, not necessarily including Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff, have said that she has no intent to vie for the role, has no interest in being elected to that role. And I get the funny feeling that's probably not the worst move on the planet, because even if she can put herself in a situation where, hey, I'm split apart, you know, we have our personal relationship, Toto and I, but professionally, this is totally different. You still got that thought of what is it that they're talking about when they're at home in the evening over dinner.
Yeah.
So no,
Yeah.
I don't think Susie Wolff is anywhere near the best candidate to go in on this.
Right.
High profile, sure. But yeah, I don't know if she's the best candidate to be there.
No, she's not.
All right. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have one? When we come back, Bernie Ecclestone is selling some of his cars. And when I say cars, I'm not just talking about like Jay Leno has got a whole bunch of cars that he's bought over the course of time and he takes them out and drives them around Los Angeles from time to time. No, I'm talking about Bernie Ecclestone has a collection of race cars and he's selling them. We'll tell you about it when we come back.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Steve West and Matt Nicholson here. Matt by phone because he's feeling a little bit under the weather. Hopefully everything will get back to normal for him here real soon. All right. Must be nice to have money. Former F1 head Bernie Ecclestone made, well, let's face it, quite the fortune over his long career. And with that fortune amassed quite the collection of old Formula One racers. 69 of them in all. Dates back to the beginnings of the series, 1950, and includes racers driven by the likes of Alberto Ascari, Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet, and Michael Schumacher. And that's just the start. According to reports from the British media, the value of Ecclestone's collection is approximately £500 million British pounds, or $646 million US. Ouch. Ecclestone, however, is now 94. Said it's time to turn the collection over to others, or, well, one other. Who the heck can afford that? Turns out it's the heir to Red Bull, Mark Mateschitz, the 32-year-old son of Red Bull's founder, the late Dieter Mateschitz. Ecclestone said of the sale and what's going to happen to the cars that he collected, quote, well, they've gone to a good home, which is the real thing that I was interested in making sure of. They'll present them somewhere in a museum so people can have a look at them for a change, which has never happened before. It's good. I'm more than happy with knowing that's where they've gone. I wouldn't have sold them to anyone unless I knew where they were going to finish up. They're going to build something like a museum, and that's where they're going to be. Mateschitz himself talked to a British newspaper, the Daily Mail, said that the collection is going to be, quote, carefully preserved, expanded over the years, and in the near future will be made accessible to the public at an appropriate location. Now, currently, if you're looking at a picture that we've got up on CRN Live on YouTube, that right there is a massive airport hangar at an airfield somewhere in the southern part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, put the museum there. Don't move the cars.
Yeah.
Leave the cars there.
Yeah. Leave them.
Yeah.
Don't touch them.
I'll be real blunt with you when I say this. And even if I was the most accomplished truck driver in all of Europe, I would not want to be the one to have to haul one or more of those cars to someplace else.
I do believe I would second that.
Yee. That would just scare the living Jesus out of me. All right, let's turn our attention over to the NTT IndyCar Series. Not a whole lot, but a couple of notes here. One on the good side, one on the unfortunately sad side. The good news is the first race for IndyCar on Fox generated some pretty big numbers for the network and the series. Pulled in 1.4 million people on average over the course of the entire race. That was tied for second amongst motorsports television viewership over last weekend with the Xfinity Series. The Cup Series more than doubled it, by the way. And the 1.4 million people that checked it out was up 45% over last year's season opener shown on NBC. It becomes the most watched IndyCar race that was not an Indy 500 since 2011. Wow. Mark Miles, president and CEO of IndyCar's parent company, Penske Entertainment, said this, quote, the IndyCar on Fox era got off to a tremendous start, featuring a significant year-over-year increase in audience. Fox offers an unrivaled platform featuring a massive exposure and promotion, and we're looking forward to the season ahead. In talking promotions, obviously Fox ran several promotional spots during this year's Super Bowl and since then, and it all helped raise the specter of IndyCar. Here's the thing. If there's one thing that the Fox network knows how to do, it's promote themselves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
They've done it well with NASCAR since they picked it up in 2001. They've done it well with the NFL since they picked it up in the mid-1990s. You know, they're going to promote it. There ain't no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's like I told you too after the broadcast, watching it, I gave the overall entire broadcast an A-.
Mm-hmm.
The only minus being they used those ridiculously stupid cartoon graphics still.
Yeah.
But overall, everything else was really, really good. I mean, Will Buxton really impressed me.
Yeah.
It gave the broadcast from him being the play-by-play guy. It gave him that broadcast, I think, that Lee Dippy brought to the NBC side.
I could agree with that.
It had that flair. It had that flair to it.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We don't have details. They haven't released details. But Fox says they're going to be bringing every effort to bear when it comes to their first year of coverage of the Indy 500. So they plan on making it more of a spectacle than it already is. This ought to be interesting.
Right.
We found this out a little bit too late to include it in last week's show. IndyCar veteran Lee Koonsman passed away on Thursday, February the 27th. Koonsman was born late 1944 in Gutenberg, Iowa. He claimed the IMCO Rookie of the Year in 1967, but he ended up suffering several injuries during in crashes that kind of curtailed his career. One of those accidents happened in June of 1970 at I-70 Speedway in Missouri, left him with third-degree burns over more than 40% of his body, left permanent scarring as well. Recovery took almost a year, but he ended up getting a ride in the 1972 Indy 500. He'd race it again in 1973, 1977, and 1979. He failed to qualify for the event another 5 times. He did finish, get a best finish of 7th, and did that upon 2 different occasions. When he decided to retire from driving, he stayed in the world of motorsports for some time. He actually became the general manager of Hemmelgarn Racing. He was also part of the team that Buddy Lazier took to victory lane in the 1996 Indy 500 and claimed the 2000 IndyCar Series championship. Lee Koonsman, 80 years old. Rest in peace. To the NHRA, turns out that age doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. Just ask John Force. But 55-year-old Tony Schumacher ain't done with the NHRA yet either. And that's borne out by the fact that he's now got himself a part-time ride for the 2025 season with Rick Ware Racing in their Top Fuel entry. And yes, that is a thing in case you are a NASCAR kind of person and don't really know that much about some of the other series. Tony Schumacher's an 88-time winner in Top Fuel, 8-time champion in that division, says he expects to compete, quote, at a high level immediately with the organization next to teammate Clay Millican. He says this is all in preparation for a hopeful return to full-time action in 2026. Schumacher said of it, quote, the passion and commitment that Rick and his group have for the racing is incredible. I can't wait to get behind the wheel. Limited schedule this year allows us to prepare for 2026 and show people what we're capable of. This, by the way, is the second year in a row that he's competed on a part-time basis. Last year, he was part-time with JCM Racing, but he won 2 national events, finished 8th in the final Top Fuel standings. But JCM has decided to go with an all-female driver lineup this year, Alexis DeJoria and Ida Zetterstrom. And that gave Rick Ware Racing the opening to hire Tony, and I got to give Rick Ware credit here because despite the fact that he's not a front runner necessarily in the Cup Series, what he's been able to do with Dale Coyne has been a little bit eye-opening in IndyCar, and what he's been able to accomplish in his relatively short time in the NHRA, certainly very impressive. And then you turn around and you get Clay Millican, and you bring on Tony Schumacher with the intent of taking a part-time second car and turning it full-time just next year. Rick Ware, I got to give him credit on this one. This is a fantastic move.
Yeah, very, 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 very solid move by him to get that another veteran shoe in on his program for Clay Millican.
Yeah.
That could be a very good combination for the future.
Oh yeah, I believe so. This may just do what Rick Ware wants and puts him in victory lane on a pretty regular basis. Ware himself talked about it, said this, quote, Tony is a huge addition to RWR. Bringing a driver of his caliber into our race team strengthens our overall program. We now have 2 of the best NHRA drivers and sponsor ambassadors to the sport. We'll talk about that in a second. With Clay and Tony working together, they can feed off each other's strengths, provide detailed feedback, and collaborate on what they're experiencing in the car, and that just elevates our entire operation. If you happen to see the picture that producer John put up on CRN Live on YouTube, it was him in a U.S. Army shirt. Well, he was sponsored for such a long period of time by the U.S. Army in and around the paddock area, he's called Sarge.
Yeah.
You know, and it's,
yep.
You get that kind of race winning and title winning experience to come in with you with the ability to be such a close ambassador to something like the U.S. Army. They should have no problem finding sponsorship for Clay Millican. 88 race wins, 8 titles. Yeah, they shouldn't have any problems finding sponsorship for that Top Fuel ride this year and next when they go full time.
Yeah, there should not be any at all.
All right. Last week we showed them off to you, the red and blue 2025 looks for their Dodge Mopar racing team. Tony Stewart Racing this week announced that they've extended their deal with Dodge SRT to continue with the car maker in Top Fuel and Funny Car. Dodge has been with Tony Stewart Racing since they got into the NHRA in 2022. Since then, they've claimed 16 event wins, and they won the 2023 Funny Car title for Matt Hagan with the brand. So, yeah, that's a long-term deal that will continue. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hasn't Smoke dealt with Mopar on some of his dirt racing stuff as well?
No, it was his dirt racing stuff was tied into whatever Cup car brand manufacturer he was driving. It was mainly Chevrolet and Ford.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I wanted to say I saw a Sprint at one point in time that had a Mopar logo on it, but I might be wrong.
Dodge does not have a Sprint, an engine developed for Sprint car race.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Some things change and, well, others just stay the same. Funny car driver Blake Alexander, for example, staying the same. He's going to return in 2025. He's going to have the familiar Pronto Network sponsorship. This will mark his 10th year with the Pronto Network as his primary sponsor. But the change is he's moving to a new team. He's helping Chad Green Motorsports field and kick off their funny car program. Alexander's going to be the driver for 15 events this season, with Chad's son Hunter slated to make his funny car debut this year. He'll get into 4 events. Now, this is a situation where Hunter has won in Top Alcohol. This will be his debut up to Nitro Funny Car. The new team will get advice from Green Motorsports crew chiefs who are already there and working on their Top Fuel and other programs. But Alexander himself is going to have Matt Bynum as his crew chief. This is his first time as a crew chief, but the 33-year-old has worked in the NHRA for well over a decade, was a crew member, for example, on Del Worsham's 2015 Funny Car title-winning team, so it's not like he doesn't know how to do it. This is going to be interesting to see whether Chad Green Motorsports and these guys, Blake Alexander specifically as the driver, are going to have success, or is this going to be a situation where they're going to clash and it's going to fall apart?
It's hard to say until we see something happen on the track.
Yeah, but the fact that they were able to figure it out and work together this way, hey, knock it out. Let's see what happens. And NHRA officials announced a big deal for Pro Stock Division in that they have signed a title sponsor for the #1 qualifying award. It is the company GESI. It's going to be handed out in 18 different times this coming season. Leading company CEO, I should say, Eric Latino, to say this, quote, "I love this class." If you see the picture on CRN Live on YouTube, you can see that they've sponsored cars in the past. Latino said, "I love this class, and if you work that hard to become the #1 qualifier, you should be rewarded for it. It's such a high professional level class, and we wanted to step up and provide this. I wanted to give back. I'm really looking forward to this. It should be a really exciting year." GESI is a world-leading company in the design, engineering, and manufacture of global emissions systems. One would presume Volkswagen didn't use them during Dieselgate a few years ago. And they won the top qualifier award. Driver not only gets the honor noted, but a $2,000 bonus to bring a little bit more drama to that situation. So, hey, we'll take all the money we can get, right? That's what racers do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, don't really talk politics, but in this particular situation, since it does affect Gainesville, where they're going to be racing this weekend, it seemed appropriate to talk about it. And if you've ever tried to get down to the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, you might have noted that it's not the easiest place to get in and out of. Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis joined in a press conference this week held at the Big Daddy Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing in Gainesville, and they announced that they are accelerating a major expansion of I-75 in and around Ocala, Florida. What this will do is add lanes of traffic to help improve traffic flow and to reduce congestion, should help those getting into and out of the Gator Nationals. DeSantis said, quote, "We launched Moving Florida Forward back in 2023 to accelerate road projects with an emphasis on alleviating traffic. We're accelerating this I-75 project near Ocala because residents and visitors alike need relief from the congestion. The project was not slated to begin for another 10 to 15 years. But thanks to our program, construction is now underway." Wow, that's quite the advancement.
Good for them. Good for them.
10 to 15 years. What are they in Alabama doing road construction projects? Good grief.
I guess so.
Can we get one of those acceleration projects in like every state in the country? I know of a stretch of interstate that's not quite 10 miles long that screams to be expanded out to 3 lanes. And Matt, I know you know which stretch of interstate I'm talking about.
Yep.
To the IHRA, yeah, we've started to make them a regular feature here on this show because, man, they're really starting to step things up. We talked about scheduling last week. We talked about how they've got new officials at the top of the IHRA that came straight from the NHRA. And now IHRA officials are jumping in with both feet to announce the return of the national pro-am slate of races. It's 10 dates, going to begin in mid-June, run through the end of October. This will include big-time nights and features like they've had in the past, like Night of Fire, other events like the President's Cup, Nitro Jam / Pro-Am, and the National Finals. The National Finals is going to be held on the final weekend of the month of October, and those will take place at Darlington Dragway in South Carolina, and they admit that, yes, we've got those events, but more might be added. So keep an eye on that. The IHRA really, I got to give them a lot of credit, man. They're really stepping it up here. You and I,
They are. Yeah.
you and I, it took us a while before we kind of warmed up to the idea of even talking about the NHRA. But it's become a regular for us to talk about them and keep you updated on it because really it's really fascinating racing. You've actually been to a couple of these events, and it's something that I still want to do. But in the grand scheme of things, the IHRA, I remember it when I was a kid, and then it basically all but disappeared.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought it had disbanded. I didn't even realize it was still around.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So the fact that they're actually not only getting themselves up off of the mat, but they're going out there and they're hiring people from the NHRA and they're throwing out schedules here left and right and saying, hey, listen, we're getting back into this and we're making sure that we're going to do this the right way and working on the one thing that I haven't yet heard, and this is kind of the sad part, is I haven't heard where we're going to be able to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure that's coming, though.
It better be, because that's a key factor for them. You know, if you're going to battle up against the NHRA, you better have a way to have a whole lot of people get eyeballs on you. And I'm not saying you got to go with Fox, but, you know, it certainly wouldn't hurt you to have a really good deal with a fairly high-profile, at least cable network.
Yeah, I mean, get on something solid. I mean, in worst case scenario, it'll be on Flow Racing to get started for the year.
Yeah.
And then, you know, get it involved. But I'm just waiting to see the full Nitro schedule, if they put a Nitro event in Alabama somewhere.
We're waiting to find out.
That's what I'm waiting on.
Yep. Well, I'll be keeping an eye on it, obviously. When we come back, we'll return our attention over to NASCAR. We got Xfinity and Craftsman Truck Series news to talk about here, specifically a Star Truck here. And then maybe a little bit more information coming when it comes to the return of the Dodge / Ram brand to NASCAR. Exactly what do we mean? Stick around. I'll tell you next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Appreciate you joining us here. Final segment of this weekend before we let you check out Phoenix. We were at Texas last weekend, COTA specifically. Phoenix this weekend, and don't forget, Gainesville, Florida Gator Nationals for the NHRA tomorrow as well, happening on their opening weekend of the year. We skipped over talking about Xfinity and trucks. Not a whole lot going on here, but in the Xfinity series, got a couple of new sponsors. For example, the Haas Factory team announced they've partnered up with Pit Boss Grills for a number of races this year, covering Sheldon Creed and the 00 Ford Mustang. Pit Boss is new to the team. They joined Ranger in that role. This is the first time they're going to be a primary sponsor on the car. That happens actually later today at Phoenix. They didn't announce the rest of their slate for 2025, but one would assume a handful, 3 to 5, I would say, give or take.
Yeah.
Then Jeremy Clements got himself a new partner too. He's bringing along Alliance Driveway Solutions to the number 51 Chevrolet. A total of 8 races this year. The first going to be this weekend at Phoenix, and then a whole lot of road course racing here. Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, Chicago, Sonoma, Portland, then the ovals at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway in Kansas, and the return to Phoenix for the last weekend of the year. Company's going to be an associate sponsor when they're not a primary. So big-time investment for Alliance Driveway Solutions for this year as well. All right. To the Craftsman Truck Series, where Spire Motorsports continues to fill out the lineup of their Star Truck. That Star Truck is that 07 Chevrolet Silverado. And not really much of a surprise. If you're going to go get stars, why aren't you going to go get some moonlighters, right? And that's exactly what they're doing. They went out and they got 2 Hendrick Motorsports drivers. They picked up Kyle Larson and William Byron. And between the two of them, they're going to get 3 total starts in that truck. Larson's going to pilot the truck at Homestead, Miami, and Bristol. In between, William Byron will get his shot. That'll be Martinsville. So right in the middle of Larson's pair of races. Okay. So, by the way, this will put Byron back in the race where he helped Spire claim their very first Craftsman Truck Series win, and it's also happens to be Byron's most recent series win. This truck that we're talking about here, you know, Spire has themselves a good product because, well, they got it from Kyle Busch Motorsports, and then they're turning around and they're putting some really good drivers in the truck. So it's no doubt that they're winning.
Yeah, especially when it's basically the de facto Hendrick truck team.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, that's also another way to look at it. That's why they're getting the Hendrick drivers to be able to fill in for them. Over to Thor Sport Racing. They got themselves a young hot shoe. Let's see how much you know about this kid. 3-race deal, modified driver. His name's Luke Baldwin. Baldwin's going to make his Craftsman Truck Series debut in the team's number 66 at Martinsville. He's going to bring along sponsorship from a company called Mohawk Northeast. His other 2 races will come at Kansas and at North Wilkesboro early this year. So he's going to be early done with his slate. But I get the funny feeling that 66 is a star truck, I guess, right?
Yes.
So if he performs well in these 3, would it be totally out of the realm of possibility he could get more starts?
Possibly, yeah. I'm never going to say never.
And the only reason I ask that is because, you know, you and I, we haven't seen a full slate for this number 66 truck, so we don't know whether it's filled out for the rest of the year. But judging by the fact that this got signed this week, I'm guessing it's not filled out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, more than likely not.
All right, here's what I know. Let's see whether you can fill in anything. Baldwin is a native of North Carolina, 18 years old. He's the defending champion of the Smart Modified Tour, claimed that title in his rookie season in that series. He's also got 4 NASCAR Wayland Modified Tour starts to his credit, all coming for Tommy Baldwin Racing. He actually got a pole at New Smyrna where he claimed 4th as well.
Yeah.
I know I've asked this before, but I'll ask it again just for the giggles of it and the fact that we've got new listeners and viewers all the time. Smart Modified Tour and Wayland Modified Tour, what's the difference?
Engine size.
Okay.
Engine size is the difference.
All right.
Wayland Modified Tour is basically is basically the Cup Series of modified racing.
Right.
And the Smart Modifieds is basically, I would say, is on the level of Truck Series, because I think they run a spec crate engine setup, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And then that brings us to the next comparison. Modified cars to the Craftsman Truck Series trucks that they use.
Monstrous difference.
So, big time learning curve, or the fact that he's on tracks that he's probably relatively comfortable at is going to help him?
The short tracks that he is going to help him for sure. Kansas, he may be a dart without feathers.
Okay.
But the Wilkesboro and the Martinsville, he'll be okay because he's raced there in the modifieds before.
Okay, so his familiarity with the track is going to assist him in making that transition.
Should, yes.
Okay, all right. And then an interesting screenshot was shared by a dealer up in Wisconsin, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer this week. Now, this purports to be a corporate one sheet. And this is kind of backroom talk, but, you know, corporate one sheet's basically just an outline, if you remember doing outlines when you were in school for reports or whatever. And it just says, you know, basic goals for this year. This, and this, right? Well,
Yep.
The corporate one sheet for Stellantis, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sent out to the dealers, apparently, if this is true, said under the Ram brand, the bottom one of the notations was, quote, back to NASCAR Truck Series. Now, producer John's about to show you a picture on CRN Live on YouTube. That is a very old truck, okay? It's not what the new ones would look like. That's 1998, okay? But remember that at one point in time, the Dodge/Ram brand was a participant in the Truck Series and in NASCAR, right? And we talked about how they backed out of both the Cup Series and the Xfinity, what we now call the Cup and Xfinity Series in 2012, but they still did factory support of the Truck Series until 2016 or 2015. And then we didn't see them anymore until after 2016. Mainly because of the lack of factory support, right? Well, why are we talking about this here? Because, well, this all continues to lend even more credence to those rumors and the initial reports that came out from catchfence.com that state that the truck division of Stellantis wants to return to NASCAR and could return to NASCAR as soon as next year. This is a rumor that continues that not only would Stellantis return the Ram brand to NASCAR, but would be then working to bring the Dodge brand back as well, potentially as soon as the 2028 season. Now, this can work out fairly easily, and the reason why it would work out easier, and Matt knows this even better than I, but heck, I can sit here and tell you this. The reason it works out really well and could happen much faster for the Truck Series is they only got to get a body together. Why?
Yep.
Engines are done by Ilmor.
Yep. Spec motors.
So that makes it a lot easier on Ram, Stellantis, to be able to go ahead and get that prepared. I say it's only the body. Is that really all that it is? Or what all? You might know a little bit more about this, Matt. What all might be involved in Dodge having to get this approved to come back in?
Just the body, really the body specs, which is probably already been done, truth be known.
Okay.
Because the chassis and suspension parts and the engine and the driveline is all basically the same thing for everybody across the board.
Okay. Now, complicating the situation is what they would do were they to get into Xfinity and or Cup. Now, what we do know is this. The Challenger and Charger, as we have known them for, 20 years? They're gone. But they are working up a new, I believe it is to be named Challenger, and a body style that has, to give you an odd frame of reference, go look up the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard. The body style that I've seen generally evokes that body style.
Right.
But then you probably are sitting there saying, well, wait a minute, they were talking about going pretty much all EV, right? Well, remember, we got to change up in the White House. And he's backing off all these EV mandates that the former Biden administration had put into effect. And in that corporate one sheet, it was also noted for Ram specifically that they were going to return to putting the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 into their pickup trucks, which means that the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 becomes an available engine, which means you could put it in the Challenger, which means you can then put it into NASCAR.
Yep.
That means Dodge has a V8 engine that they can take to NASCAR and go, boom. The approval process, a little bit more involved. Again, spec engines from Ilmor, that's one thing. Long approved. Don't have to worry about that. Green stamped, ready to go. Dodge going in fully with their own engines and things like that, that's going to take a little bit more, and that's why probably a delay. If this is actually true, if they're planning on bringing this whole thing back, and again, we have no confirmation from Stellantis, we have no confirmation from anybody from NASCAR yet, but yeah, if this is actually going to happen, like they're saying it's going to happen, I could see the Ram brand coming back next year. But yeah, I could see it easily taking a couple more years before they're able to get any car into either the Xfinity and or the Cup Series.
For sure. And no earlier than 27.
Yeah. And I would say 2028 is probably a more likely year for it, because once you get all the approvals for the car, then you're going to want to start talking teams.
Exactly.
So we're waiting for final yay or nay on that. We're hoping to hear about it really, really soon. A lot of good racing coming up. Athena doing a nice job on the chat on CRN Live on YouTube, talking about worldwide stuff. Thank you very much for always putting that up there week to week. We appreciate it. Again, our thoughts and our prayers out to Chi-Town Mark, regular listener and viewer on CRN Live on YouTube. Found out he's in the hospital. If you have any friends or family, our prayers go out to them as well that are in the hospital. Matt, we're praying for you because you're under the weather. You got to get back and live and in studio, and for the first time in maybe 3 weeks, maybe you and I both can actually do a race and be, as close to 100% as people our age can possibly be.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. I'll be praying for you. Get to feeling better, get some rest this weekend, and enjoy the racing. And that goes for all of you listening to us on 95.1 The Mountain or checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube. We appreciate it as always. And on behalf of producer John, I'm Steve West. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the racing. Again, Phoenix, Xfinity, and Cup tomorrow. And, of course, Gainesville, Florida for the Gator Nationals for the NHRA coming up tomorrow as well. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you on Wednesday with Crossed Flags, and next week right here with another edition of CRN.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.